talking about the gubernatorial debate. We have with us now one of the candidates in the governor's debate, Rom Reddy. It's not hard to find Mr. Reddy's lane. It's an outsider. I'm an outsider running in a field of insiders, and we've had enough of insiders. Mr. Reddy, is that a fair accounting of what your strategy is as candidate for governor of South Carolina?
Ken, I don't have a strategy, really. For me, it's not a strategy of deceiving the people, which seems to be the general strategy. My strategy is just give people an alternative. I think it's a once-in-a-generational opportunity. I don't think there's been anyone who's run a statewide gubernatorial campaign without taking special money donations or any campaign donations, not in the pockets of any special interests. And I don't think there will be another candidate in our generation. So it's a once-in-a-generational opportunity for us to clean out the swamp. I like to say it a different way. Let's throw a grenade in the swamp and see what crawls out. I'm the grenade. The voters are the ones who are going to do the throwing. And I just don't think that'll be another option. I wanted to give the voters a choice and let them make a decision. I think we all have these debates are really stupid, geared towards the ruling class, which is try to answer major political issues in 45 seconds. And I actually, I've not done this in 50 years, of course, and I really think I followed an incorrect strategy of trying to respond to these things, which is kind of silly. All the issues, it's all sound bites. The real issue that I should have repeated over and over for the voters is this. Who has the skill set on there? The skill set for Congress and for writing laws. Nancy Mace says she wrote 65 bills. She's in 3 terms. She's only passed one that she's been the primary sponsor for, which is renaming a post office in Hilton Head. They don't talk about results. All of their skill sets are just narrative. Not governing is about results. So that's one big issue. The second big issue is the credibility of their promises. Voters must start focusing on this, Ken. Here you got a 10-term congressman, 5 in the South Carolina House, 5 in the U.S. House, saying he's for term limits. Really? Where does the term limit start now? At 3 decades? Because you've been in there for 2 decades. You got, and he doesn't explain that it would require a constitutional amendment, which would mean that you would have to actually get 2/3 of the House and 2/3 of the Senate to vote to put term limits on the ballot. These are the same people you're calling corrupt and clean out and all that. And you think these people are going to vote themselves out of a job? So it's these kind of things that they've never done anything consequential. Norman has, in 20 years, there's not a single thing that he can say that he was primarily involved. He says, I signed bills, I didn't sign bills, I had the president call me before I signed the bill. But, there's no consequential legislation that has his name on it, on taxes, on regulation, on getting anything done. And then he talks about term limits being there for 20 years. So this is what the voters need to know. Are these people credible? Nancy Mace says she has a tax plan, and her tax plan freezes spending at $11.3 billion. Well, the budget this year is $15.4 billion. How are you going to get from 15.4 to 11.3 to freeze it? So I think what's happened in the private sector, we look at skill sets. We say, okay, you have a skill set to be an accountant or a staff job. You have a skill set to be in management. You have a skill set to be a leader. And we match the people to the skill sets. Here we don't have that. We just say, you look good on TV. You've got the right one-liner, the right zinger to say, so you can do anything. And if I was ever to give you an example, it's Mark Sanford. He was a pretty good congressman, pretty diligent at what he did. And then he decides to run for governor. It was a total disaster because it's a totally different skill set. And people just need to just recognize what's going on here. And we cannot afford the state to have 4 years or 8 more years of this nonsense, because if we do, we will challenge last place in the nation. We're solidly sitting now in the bottom 7. And we're not far from last place. And this is what the voters need to know.
Mr. Reddy, how can they find out more? You're around and about. I see you on television. I hear you on the radio. Somebody out there is interested in the Ready campaign. What do they do to find out more? How do they become a supporter of you and your campaign?
I think the best thing to do is go to readyforgovernor.com, REDDY for governor.com, and in there you'll find two things. It'll say there's 4 principles and 8 deliverables. The principles are really tied, Ken, to the principles in the Declaration. Don't forget, the people who signed the Declaration only 250 years ago, they said, with the firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our life, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. And what was that they pledged for? That our rights come from God, and government's job is to protect those rights. So government has to get up from the other side of the table and come and sit on the side of the table with the citizens. And that's what my 4 principles revolve around. And then I have 8 deliverables, very specific things that will get done in the first 4 years. And I simply say, if I don't get it done, I will not run again. It's that plain and simple. And then for people to sign up, there's a tab on there that allows them to volunteer. And we've got a lot of things they can do to help us. I don't take money. So, it's not, most people say, sign up and give me money. I don't want money. I need you to get people to understand that the system is rigged. Only 400,000 people vote in a Republican primary, and these people are the elites and the donors, and they have the system rigged. If we want the system to unrig, then we need people to say, not only am I going to go vote June 9th, and early voting starts 2 weeks before then, but I'm going to take 5 people with me. That's the only way to have a revolution. You're going to have to take 4 or 5 people with you that are not part of the donor class, not part of the elites, who are going to go in there and we're going to upend the system. I'm telling you, Ken, this for your listeners, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It's never happened before. It's not likely to happen again, but it cannot happen with people just saying, okay, I'll go do my job and vote, because you cannot overwhelm the system. The system is rigged. That's why you get these people in there. You have to overwhelm. So the best thing you can do is go sign up, and the biggest thing you can do is get 4 or 5 people to go. Go to our rallies, and we constantly have these Zoom calls where I take all questions. There's no restriction on questions. You can ask any question you want, and I don't have any prepared notes or whatever. I'll tell you the same thing I tell my wife, Renee, at the kitchen table.
We appreciate your time and wish you well, and you're always welcome to be a guest here at Wake Up Carolina. Thank you, Mr. Reddy.
Thank you, Ken. Appreciate it.